You take a coin and you grab it with your other hand. You're leading the listener in a direction. You want them to experience a certain emotion. See, and then you pull it from behind their ear. It's not a question of deception as much as guidance. You want to take the listener on a trip. And the guy was going, whoa, The sound itself is spectacular.
I am Dracula.
At the time, there was only 2 colleges in the whole United States that would take me as a conductor electronic music major. So the one out in Oakland, right outside of San Francisco, Mills College, had an interesting program, a history in electronic music that went back about 25 years, and actually provided a scholarship to go out and study. It turned out to be an unreal experience, just wonderful teachers and opportunity to do pretty much whatever you wanted to do.
Maa ja niinku sellainen tuuli.
Ruohossa esimerkiksi.
Niin, mulla on sellaista helvetin hyvää Pohjanmereltä, missä ruoho rahisee ja hiekka. Se oli se. Sitten mennäänkö special?
Mennään special. Mitä ne domestikit oli? Se oli sitä koti.
Niin, no siellä on varmaan jotain...
Pullonkorkean avaamista siellä oli esimerkiksi. Meidän kuitenkin champagnepullo. Aha, näitä. Joo.
On that beat, I think we should put some more bells and after that bass and then duck duck and out, so that it's little longer.
Mm-hmm.
School was over and I had to find a job, and ended up going to work with a theater company. Antenna Theater was doing a lot of what they called interactive theater. 1984, 85, I started a company of my own called Earwax Productions. And we've done, lots and lots of theater, and then slowly through that got involved with a radio producer, Eric Bowersfeld, who was originally with KPFA in Berkeley, and started slowly producing radio plays, and less sound design for theater, spending more time in the studio. And then over the last, I guess 4 or 5 years, it's been more directed towards television and video, and now most of the time in film or radio drama. The film is more or less what I do for a living, and the radio is what I do when I need to stretch and get new ideas. The woman that came to us is actually a theater director. She was involved with a workshop of, I think, 14, 15-year-old girls from East Oakland, which is not a very good neighborhood. They see a lot of young people get killed for drugs and drive-bys, and a lot of violence, and they're just, in a lot of ways they don't know what to hold on to, or they don't have parents, so they don't have, one parent or another. So Alan Sebastian set up a a theater workshop where they would come in and express themselves in some way or another. And the theme of it was, I think it was Bernard Shaw who wrote a book, A Black Girl in Search of God, where she, originally the story is that she leaves her village, and on the way through certain cultures and civilizations, she sees different versions of God, and her world begins to unfold.
And I'm really confused. I mean, I'm wondering, now, what happens after you've done everything? Like, what goes on after you've went to college, after you've figured out everything you wanted to do in life, after you
Judaism
worked
and Christianity. I'm studying
and had
that.
children.
I'm just really
and
trying
had
to
a
read the
family,
Bible
and
to
had
analyze it
fun,
for what
and
I
had
think,
grief,
what I'm interpreting it for, and then the Quran, and then the Torah, and some of the other books that I don't really know the name to,
fun
but
stuff
I'm kind
and
of getting
friends and
into it just so I
family
can
and everything
see.
else. What happens after that?
Um,
I don't really understand exactly. And I'm really confused. I mean, I'm wondering what God does for you.
But a change is gonna come.
For me, it turned out to be more of a study in, and I don't know how much of this comes across, even in my own language, but what can you do with editing human voice to make it so that you're not just providing more or less space, but some dovetailing of ideas, some juxtaposition of ideas within the same voice. When these computers started to come around, people were becoming less and less interested in the analog synthesizer thing that just generated tones, and you could modulate frequency and modulate the filters, and it was, you keep going with it with analog sound to the point where, what's the point? It's such a long process to try to create or recreate a sound that most of the interesting works that came out of that period were sounds that people found within the instruments that were indigenous to the instruments themselves. They have a certain sound to them, and rather than trying to make a flute or trying to make an oboe with the synthesizer, they just made the sound that the synthesizer was good at. So that all that ended, for the most part, in the early 80s. It became much less interesting, and there was a gradual trend back towards the use of sampled sounds, recorded sounds.
The digital editing systems now, where you can get in very tight, you can manipulate sounds within 40 milliseconds and do things that the ear can perceive, but the mind isn't quite fast enough to acknowledge, just as your eye's not capable of following the coin into the other hand.